Hi, huge movie fanatic Nate coming at you, pardon me, in January of 2016 with a review for this is the fifth Mission Impossible movie, I believe, called Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Dun 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 dun. Now, it should be noted before I start that me and Matt have reviewed all the Mission Impossibles 1 through 4, so feel free to check out those reviews after you watch this review, or before, or at the same time if you want, whatever. But all the other previous Mission Impossible movies me and Matt have reviewed on this channel, so they're there for your viewing pleasure. So, I was, as I've said in pretty much all the reviews of Tom Cruise's last 5 or so odd movies, I said that Tom Cruise is on a veritable whatever I said, I can't remember exactly the words I said, I don't know what I said, but he's on a, oh my gosh. Basically, I just thought, I said he was on a veritable winning streak, something like that, in regards to just being on a win movie hit after hit after hit. Been really liking all of the movies he's been doing as of late, probably since Night and Day. I can never remember what he did before Night and Day, but Night and Day On, I just think is fantastic, and I must say, particularly, even Edge of Tomorrow, I thought was absolutely fantastic. Jack Reacher was cool in a kind of a more minimalistic way, and stuff like that. And this movie, I have to say, I think is a little bit. I mean, it's impossible to keep being as good as or keep continuing to top what you've done before, and you have to expect this. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, in my opinion, is probably not as good as maybe even Jack Reacher, or certainly not Edge of Tomorrow, or, in my opinion, as good as the previous Mission Impossible movie, Ghost Protocol, or even Mission Impossible 3. I feel like it's a shame, but what are you going to do? I feel like Rogue Nation is the second weakest one, in my opinion. The first weakest Mission Impossible being the second one, as I say in my review of that particular movie I did with Matt. I felt like I just Ghost Protocol just had so many fantastic scenes and set pieces, and Mission Impossible, gags and scenes and stuff. It was just unbelievable. And that fantastic bit about, the wife whom he met so, and defended and stuff like that so strongly in part 3. The story being that she was that the new character, Jeremy Renner's character, whatever the hell his name is, as a result of something he did or whatever, and was revealed in part 4 that he had died, and that being just a fake out and like a hoax thing, and that she was, a fake death to protect her, and she was really still alive, and all that kind of stuff was a cool bit of just exposition character shit to kind of, go along with all the action and stuff. And obviously that was at Dubai or whatever, the tallest building in the world scene was just fantastic, and all this and that. Ghost Protocol was fantastic, and it was going to be really hard to top, and in my opinion it was not topped in Rogue Nation. One thing before I forget that I thought was probably the lamest part of the movie is we really, unlike Mission Impossible 3 and 4, and 3 especially, but even a little bit of 4, and that, plot point that I mentioned about, his wife having been, presumably dead and killed, which turns out not to be true. This movie spends the least amount of time with Ethan Hunt just in any kind of character. I mean, he spends most of the screen time, which is cool for probably some of you younger viewers, just doing wham bang, macho, amazing stunt shit, and then any scenes in between those, he's just trying to he's just talking about getting onto the next wham bang stunt scene, action scene. So I mean, there's no real character development for Ethan Hunt, or any kind of character development for anyone. I mean, it's just like one of the cool dynamics, I guess, is the Jeremy Renner, is that his name? Whatever, his character, the guy who's new from the 4th movie. Him and Ving Rhames working for the first time. Ving Rhames' character not trusting him, and just kind of a little bit of a I don't know, character study just ever so slightly if you want. But I guess my biggest problem with the movie is that it all is pretty much just slam bang action and Mission Impossible junk, and basically little to no character development at all. And the whole movie kind of throws you off with this, short, sexy. I mean, she's shorter than Tom Cruise, so she must be really short. Short, sexy, double, triple, quadruple agent who just, is bad and then good and then bad and then good and then bad again and then ultimately good. Kind of, as a viewer and just being my personality, it kind of put me off throughout the whole movie, not knowing, okay, she's good now, she's bad now, she's good now, she's bad now. I mean, I'm getting kind of, dizzy. So those were some things, little to no real character development, and just that, sexy chick not knowing what the hell, she's good news at one point, she's bad news at one point. That kind of put me off to the movie, and obviously I don't feel like this movie had nearly as many really cool, amazing set pieces and creative, action scenes as, Ghost Protocol for that matter, or anything like that. And one thing that I thought was particularly lame was the motorbike thing, which we'd already seen in Mission Impossible 2. Granted, it was 15 years prior, in 2000. Now it's 2015 when this movie came out. We're kind of back on the motorcycle, being all fast and slam bang on a motorcycle. I thought was a little bit redundancy. Of course, I mean, it's pretty difficult to, make movie after movie and movie after movie without doing same thing. But I thought that, with the exception of the motorcycle chase and maybe even the car chase, which is very similar to a car chase kind of thing, and Night and Day, to come to think about it, I think Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz were on a motorcycle, but it very much reminded me of the, chase scene in Night and Day. It's hard to keep coming up with stuff to top, stuff different. I mean, I imagine it must be hard to keep coming up with new stuff. So, long story short, the movie had a lot of strong points. I was kind of disappointed to see that the whole plane gimmick scene was at the very beginning of the movie, kind of just a throwaway scene. I thought that'd be saved maybe for, anyway. I was kind of disappointed that was just a kind of throwaway beginning opening scene in a way. Like the pre-credit scene in like Ghost Protocol was just amazing. Granted, for me, this movie's got a lot of strong points. I mean, the end fakery with the Prime Minister and stuff, and I just won't spoil it. I'll just say what they end up doing to get to the Prime Minister or whatever at the end was cool. And I'm not really a fan of stuff like that whole Simon Pegg raid with a bomb shit to blow, because he's not going to blow up. So it's really not suspenseful, and I just hate that, you're on a pressure sensitive seat and all this shit, and it's ready to blow and the time's counting down. It's just cheap. That's just, in my opinion, that's just a cheap way to get suspense. So I'm not a big fan of that. The strong points of this movie for me was the opera scene was the high point of this movie, unfrickin' believable. And as I've always mentioned, every time there's classical music featured in high profile movies like Avengers 2 and other movies that classical music is featured in high profile and featured very heavily in this movie, because Simon Pegg's listening to Mozart on the computer, playing some computer game, and then a lot of opera in that opera scene. That opera scene is absolutely fantastic. I mean, absolutely fantastic, and something that, of course, obviously we've seen before, and Man Who Knew Too Much and all this shit, but, that chick was super sexy in that dress, and Sexy Assassin and all this shit, and it's kind of like a brain twister, like you got all these people with guns, and who's shooting who, and why, and what. So, at the end of the day, I mean, it's a fine movie to pass the time or whatever, but, I after thinking about it and revisiting Mission Impossible 3 and 4, I think that, it's the weakest of, we'll just say, when we compare 3, 4, and 5, in my opinion, it's the weakest of the 3, 4, and 5. As I said, this is my second, least favorite Mission Impossible, but that doesn't say it's anything as bad as what I would regard 2 as. It's still good, and the opera scene is fantastic, and there's other scenes that are fantastic, but for me, just that girl just not knowing what the hell she is, and just Tom Cruise, little to no character development with him or anyone else for that matter, is just kind of like, there's not a lot of stock invested in any characters, and even the bad guy's just kind of annoying, and So at the end of the day, we'll give it a 3 stars. I think instead of saying a strong 3 stars, I'll say more like a weak 3 stars. It's very much can't really decide between 2 3/4 stars and 3, but we'll give it a weak 3 as opposed to a strong 2 3/4. We'll give it a weak 3 stars. I think that it's pretty good and whatever and stuff, but I just feel like a lot of stuff was recycled actually from having the girl in a sexy dress, kind of like recycled from 3 and 4, and just a lot of things recycled not only from previous Mission Impossible movies, including the bike chase, but also previous movies in general. But again, when there's hundreds of movies continuing to be made every year, it's hard to not do something that's already been done. So I'm excited to know what Tom Cruise is going to come up, like what movie he's going to come up with next. I've heard that the director for this movie, which I think was the last 2 directors for Jack Reacher and then Edge of Tomorrow and then this, I think he's worked with the same director the last 3 times. I've heard that this, for the very first time in Mission Impossible movie history, the director who did this one is signed on to do the next Mission Impossible, and that makes me think they're going to make the next one sooner than normal. Usually several years go by between them, but Tom Cruise is getting not exactly any younger, so whatever. It's a solid effort, but 3 and 4 were just so amazing in my opinion that I'm afraid for me it falls short. So thank you very much for watching my review of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. And Alec Baldwin was cool to hate in there, and you love to hate him and hated to love him and all this stuff. So the girl was sexy, and like I say, she's shorter than Tom Cruise, so she must be short. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time.